Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build. Alicia, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here, and I super appreciate this platform that you've built. Really great resource for us veterans in construction to be able to connect. And I'm also super honored. I happen to notice that I'm the first female on your show.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to finally have checked off this box, you being the first to represent the female veteran in built environment demographic. So thank you. If you run into any others, know any others, please send them my way because I need to even that out a little bit the best I can.
Right, heck yeah, I wish I knew more. None come to mind off the top of my head, but when I find them, I will send them your way.
Well, a part of the purpose of the show hopefully will be to promote this industry to other female service members and or now veterans to join our industry. So
Heck yeah.
let's aim for that.
Heck yeah, yeah, let's do it. All right.
Awesome. So where are you calling in from? Where's home base for you?
I am just south of Portland, Oregon, West
Hmm.
Coast.
That's awesome. High on my list, and I know that you mentioned a few hobbies outside of work life that I'm really excited to hear about later on. Before we get into your life story, though, let's kick off with the first two questions. First being, I know you're a mom, so if your daughter comes to you and says, she wants to join the military, what's your reaction? What do you do?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Several people have asked me about that. And one thing that I tell folks when they learn that I'm a veteran and they come back with this interesting comeback of like, oh, I wanted to serve, but
Mm,
this reason or this reason or this reason. And my response to them is usually, it's okay. Like, not everyone is meant to be in the military. And
mm,
so that would be my response when it comes to the idea of my daughter being in the military.
mm,
I think if it was something she wanted to do, she would rock it, but it's just not something she's ever expressed an interest in. And
mhm.
I'm okay with that.
Cool. Yeah, great answer. I really like that you brought up the I would have served, but it's such an interesting kind of thought process that, I come across a lot and I get really frustrated at it. And I really appreciate the way you say you answer it. I think that's a great way to kind of address it and uh, deflect it a little bit and kind of move on, right?
Right. Yeah. I have to admit, I'm grateful that you can say it frustrates you.
Mm,
Um, I get that comment a lot, and to be honest, sometimes I'm not sure if I get it just based on the fact that I'm a woman.
mm.
Um, but to hear that, well, I know it's a common thing that many veterans hear, but I'm glad to know I'm not the only one that's a little ruffled by it.
Yeah. I mean your response to it, I think is awesome, and I've never heard that before, and it's I'm gonna start using that. So I'll give you
Yeah,
credit
good.
wherever I can.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Awesome. So moving onward is kind of like an open-ended thought process question in that when veterans join civilian workforce, civilian space in general, um, or I should say when service members become veterans and join the civilian space, there's naturally a gap, right? A cultural gap. How do you see us better bridging that gap? And when I say this, I also believe it's kind of goes both ways, right? It's also for civilians to maybe learn a little bit more and understand, i.e., the question that we just rose, right? Being, oh, I would have served, but anyhow, I digress there. How do you kind of recommend that we better improve that cultural gap?
That's a great question. I love that you acknowledge it's a two-sided deal. So for veterans, particularly in the construction industry, based on my own experience,
Mhm.
I would say be be prepared to spend extra time investing in relationships, because if you are new to the industry, you're not here because of a family connection or a good old buddy connection. You're really starting at sub-zero level. You have a lot of work to do to build some advocates for yourself, and you're going to need them. Um, it takes time to recognize who's willing and able to help you. So it's not just finding a teacher, but someone that's willing to step up to the plate for you and defend you. One big gap that I see that is a detriment to veterans in construction, if they're on the management side, uh, project management side, is that um, as a veteran, you're not really building your day, your work day, based on work to put in place to make a profit, right? That's not something we ever had to worry about. We had to worry about getting the job done, getting it done right, um, moving on to the next thing. So in the construction management world, you really are responsible for understanding how to, you know, make more money than you cost the company. And as far as I've seen, there's very few folks in construction companies in leadership positions that are willing to take you under their wing and have that conversation with you. They're really going to expect you to figure it out for yourself, which is beyond rough.
Yeah.
um, so that's just like kind of one example, right? On the civilian side of that, then it's important to recognize, veterans come from a very different foundation of characteristics. Our formative years were spent in a very different way. This teamwork idea we have is much different even than their construction teamwork idea. For us, a team was the people we went to basic training with, and we lived with them, we ate with them, we sweat with them, we probably cried with them. um, those are the true gritty moments of life that you're really building your foundation of adult life on. um, and it's very different in the civilian world, of course. Very few people have that kind of opportunity, but I mean, it does go to show why, like, college buddies stay in touch for so long. Or, people really can't let go of their highlight days of being on the high school football team, whatever that may be. It's not necessarily about living in the past. I believe it's really about um, trying to function in today's world with the tools you were given to work with. And for us veterans, it's a completely different set of tools. So the more the civilian population can work to understand that and respect it and have some empathy for it, and work with it, because man, that's a great tool to have. I think we're all better off, and we're all be a much stronger team, um, for the mission and the cause, if we can really dial that in.
Hmm. Yeah, very well said. I really appreciate the perspective that you mentioned, building the foundation of adulthood on from, and that goes both ways, right? It's just a different world that the veteran or civilian is building their adulthood foundation on, which is a trajectory forward. So it's a really interesting thing to think about for both sides there. So awesome answer, awesome way to put it. All right, Alicia, we're going to do a life story to kick off. I'm going to run through the abbreviated version of uh, your bio. I'm going to put the full version in the show notes. I highly recommend everyone reads it because it's really well articulated. Alicia Scovill served over 5 years in the U.S. Air Force supporting critical aviation and cavalry operations across multiple theaters, earning staff sergeant ranking. Alicia's service included pre-deployment operations support for the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment alongside the 4th Infantry Division from Fort Carson, a deployment to Bosnia supporting the 11th Aviation Regiment and 4th Brigade 1st Cavalry Division under the 401st Expeditionary Air Base Group during Stabilization Force peacekeeping operations, a deployment to Korea supporting the 2nd Battalion, 52nd Aviation Regiment and Air Traffic Services Detachment, providing critical logistics and aviation support under the 17th Aviation Brigade, a deployment to Kosovo supporting elements of the 10th Mountain Division Aviation and Task Force Falcon during Kosovo Force stability operations, and lastly, supporting the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment during pre-Iraq deployment modernization phase from Fort Carson. Alicia earned multiple decorations and service ribbons, including the Air Force and Army Achievement Medals, the Army Commendation Medal, NATO Medal, and more. Alicia started her career with a degree in construction engineering management to project engineer and now a company president. Today, Alicia is the president of Scovill Construction and Contracting Services, where she transforms complex projects into success stories. Alicia's passion for veterans advocacy drives her to create meaningful pathways for transitioning service members. Outside work life, Alicia enjoys piloting across the Pacific Northwest and exploring the outdoors. Really can't wait to hear more about all of what I just read. Let's kick off with childhood, where you grew up, what childhood was like.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Klamath Falls, Oregon.
Hmm.
Um, and if anyone's familiar with that area, they know that there's an air base there and host to many fast movers. So that's truly what inspired me was you know, riding my bike around town in the 80s, late 80s, and having these jets just roar overhead. And in the day, they were allowed to break the sound barrier still. Um, so it was just a straight shot of adrenaline, right? Like even as a kid, you're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And and I remember where I was. Like I remember I was walking up a sidewalk next to a chain link fence and a jet roared overhead. And I just looked up and I was like, I'm gonna do that someday. But that's how everybody's fantasy starts, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like deciding that you're gonna join the military based on some super cool movie you watched. I'm not throwing any shade on that. It's just a great point that so many of us join the service with these huge ideas in mind, and then if we don't end up getting to do that job that we had in mind, there is an impact. All spoiler alert, I was very happy with what I ended up doing. It was aviation related, but I did not get to fly any jets, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's as a kid, obviously, anytime you're looking at your aspirations, it's with wide eyes, right? Nonetheless, what your opportunities are, even if they're not met exactly, what your opportunities are in the military, I think, right? I mean, obviously, I'm a bit skewed, but my perspective is skewed, but I think they're pretty awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And
Hmm.
um I'll touch on the fact too that I was in the Air Force, but I was assigned to the Army the entire time I served. So I was a um Air Force weather observer. Everyone called me Weather Girl. And it was great for me to be Army support because following Klamath Falls, I see we're sidelining from the original question. You're gonna have to reel me in. I tend to do
That's
that
okay.
sometimes. But
That's okay.
following Klamath Falls, I spent time growing up in Prescott, Arizona. Like
Mm.
typically I'll say that's where I grew up. but it's a pretty rough little old Western town. I spent lots of time just out on back
Hmm.
roads doing outdoorsy things. I loved driving and getting trucks stuck where they never should have been in the first place. Um, so being Army support allowed me to do other things beyond weather observation tasks that were really like perfect for me. Being Army support, we had to do a lot more tactical training. So we went on, um, well, we had to be trained on how to drive the Humvees, which was a lot of fun for me. Eventually, I was training the rest of the people in my unit how to drive the Humvees. I got to go to a master driver course. That was super awesome. Um, One of my favorite things about being Army support was what I call the camping trips, which annoys the Army because they call them training exercises. But, you know, that's why they call us chair force. So it's all
It's a
even
good
in the end.
it's a good mentality to have, to think of it as camping anyways. They should take that as a positive.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So so did you have family members that served, or was this like purely just your exposure to Air Force?
uh, yeah, I did. My
Hmm.
dad and my grandpa were both in the Navy.
Hmm.
My grandpa was mm, he was a mechanic on um, they weren't aircraft carriers. It's escaping me at the moment, which I feel
All
terrible
right.
about, but it'll come back to me.
Hmm.
Um, and then I also have an uncle that was in the Army for a bit too. Yep.
Hmm. Did any of them talk to you about their service in a way that might have kind of also impacted you?
Yeah, of course. I was closest to my grandfather, and he was
Hmm.
constantly talking about the engines and the things that he dealt with, and explaining them in a way that really forced me to try to visualize what on earth he was talking about, which is great because that is truly what also led me to construction.
Mm, really neat. Wow. So
Yeah.
I guess going through, or I should ask, did you enlist in high school, right after high school, or what was timing with enlistment?
I was delayed enlistment, so I was delayed enlistment for almost a year before I actually joined.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think I was 17 when I officially signed up. Um, and
So
that was
walk us through what that process was like, meaning, you knew you wanted Air Force all the way, so you just went to Air Force recruiter, or how was that like?
Oh yeah, I had to dodge all the other recruiters because they're like in the same office. As I walk through the door, they all come to their doorways, and I'm like, sorry, I'm just going right here. Yeah, really, Air Force was the only one I was considering.
Mhm.
If it came to a point that I wasn't going to be able to get in, mm, I probably would have found something else to do. I'm no idea what that would have been. Community college,
Mhm.
I suppose. But yeah, I'm glad it all worked out because I feel like that was my perfect pathway.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. So you did delayed enlistment, meaning early in high school, so when you finished high school, you enlisted right away.
Yeah, there was a period of a couple months before,
Hmm.
after graduating and before I left. I was supposed to leave right after Thanksgiving, but my recruiter made a mistake and called me 2 days before Thanksgiving and said, I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. You have to leave. And I was like, yeah, I know, in like 3 days, 4 days. And he's like, no, you have to leave now. So I was one of the lucky ones that spent Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's in basic training.
Well, it's a good foreshadowing, if that's the right way to say it, of what it's like to not be a civilian.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. surprise, guess where you're
Right.
going.
Exactly. So
Yep.
walk us through what basic training was like for you.
Um, I don't know. In the Air Force, it's the shortest basic training, or at least it was when I went through. I feel like it was really more meant to prepare us mentally than anything else. Um, because there was a lot of mind games. Like, you know, they yell at you to do something and you do it and they say, "Why the F are you doing it that way?" Type of business.
Hmm.
And it just rolled off because my life prepared me to be able to just let that roll off. Um, there was an interesting challenge I had in basic training is I actually broke my foot on the obstacle course. Um, but it wasn't a clean break, so it didn't show up on an x-ray. So I ended up finishing basic training with a broken foot, having to do the final evaluation run and everything. I was the second to last person to finish. The person behind me, she just hated running. Um, I had been a runner. I was a cross country runner in high school, so I
Mm.
could run. I was just in so much pain. But
Yeah.
what got me to finish that race actually was like the chick behind me. I was like, "All right, just watch my heels. Just watch my heels. You match my heels. Let's just finish this thing." And and we did.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, finally, when I got to tech school, they did a bone scan and realized my foot was broken all to heck. So, um, that was interesting. It was
Yeah.
basic training was a good challenge. I mean, aside from the broken foot.
Right.
But that's what it's meant to be, right? It's a test of your fortitude and to build some character.
Yeah. I would say especially so if you're going through it with a broken foot. So that's it's a pretty cool story now, right? I'm sure that wasn't fun in the moment though.
Oh my gosh, no, none of my major injury stories are cool. None of them.
Well, I mean, for whatever it's worth, in hindsight, it's a cool story to say you didn't even finish last with a broken foot. Did
Right?
did
Yeah.
you yeah, exactly. Did you know what you were going to do from day one or from basic, or at what point did you know you were going into the um, weather kind of realm of the Air Force?
That's a great question. No, I didn't. I was one of those fools that went in open general because I originally I wanted any job that had to deal with flying. And so originally I wanted to be avionics tech. But you had to be able to
Mm.
lift 70 pounds up off the ground over your head. And I was tiny then. I was like maybe 110 pounds. And I practiced though. Like I trained for that. I got myself to the point where I could lift 70 pounds off the ground and clean it. But at MEPS, welcome to the mind games. Um,
Mm.
I didn't lift the 70 pounds off the ground and over my head because I was counting plates on the weight machine. And as soon as I got to 7, I was like, I'm done. That's all I can do. And then they reported, those aren't 10-pound plates. And I was like, shit. So I didn't get to be avionics because I couldn't lift the weight. So I ended up going in open
Mm.
general. Again, wanting to do anything having to do with aviation. I knew that weather was going to be a tremendous asset for me, and so that's why I took that as my alternate realm.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it's a fascinating field to be in. So walk us through. I guess you called it tech school, right? After basic, what
Yep.
happens next?
Oh, that was intense. That was fun. I got to ride the waiver bus because I had a broken foot, so I didn't have to march to school at 4 a.m., which was awesome. But it was great. I mean, it was like going to school, except it was all day, of course. By the time I graduated my tech school, I was only 2 courses short of having an associate's degree. So if you can earn a 2-year degree in 6 months, I think that speaks to how intense the training was, right?
Hmm.
Um, and there were times, I didn't do well. I had some personal things come up along the way, and I actually washed back in a few classes, and that was a good lesson for me to learn, like, it's okay to not be um, on top of the game all the time. And, by that time, you'd been doing it for so long after basic, and, this was well into my tech school that happened. And it was my first lesson in giving myself some grace and being able to pick yourself up and keep going. Um, it was a blow to my pride and my confidence, but you got to keep going.
Yep. Yep. Actually, a veteran that I recently interviewed, episode's not live yet, had a very similar kind of experience with going through a course, failing something, and then, understanding how to move past it, beyond it, and forward, exactly as you just brought up. Interesting that, like, just I heard that twice now very recently, because I think it's a very important point to bring up and bring to light, especially as we get to that kind of like translatable skills part of the show, right? And of your story is bringing to light these kind of soft skills, I'll call it, that you learn as a service member and have as a veteran, and bringing it forward into day-to-day life. So I appreciate you bringing that up and sharing that. So getting toward, I guess, the end of that tech school, is that like the end of training for getting into your unit and serving forward, or are there other steps?
I believe that was it. I mean, from there, you're shipped off to your first duty station, and mine was Fort Carson, Colorado.
Hmm.
So I lived on the Air Force Base on Peterson, and worked on Fort Carson at Butts Army Airfield. That was that
So
was the name.
before moving, before there's a mountain there, like I guess they pronounce it Butte or something, right? It's,
No, you mean the airfield?
no, there's like a in Colorado, like a ski mountain.
Oh
Um,
yeah, there's so many. There's Crested Butte. Is that what you're thinking
yeah,
of?
Crested Butte. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, sorry, digress there. But moving back one step, because I don't really know much about what, training looks like, or what what it means to go through that process. Curious if you could, just give some kind of like general, I don't know, overarching points of becoming, your role.
Oh, of weather training. Yeah, sure.
Hmm.
So it's essentially learning uh, fluid dynamics,
Mm.
and how it affects aviation safety. I mean, to put it very
Sure,
briefly, that's the whole
sure.
point of it, right? Um, so the blessing and the curse of it is that it's fluid dynamics, but fluid dynamics is invisible. So it's very difficult to, it was difficult for me to learn because I'm a visual learner. um, but it was, I'm trying to think of what we even learned first. I mean, it probably started with like the things you learn in grade school, like the different cloud types, stratus, cirrus, altostratus, cumulonimbus, um, some of those basic things. And then it just became more, mm, just literally more black and white, factual, and
Hmm.
understanding why certain things matter and the impact they have. Things like your shortwave weather patterns that are going to affect, whatever's happening for the next couple of days, or long wave weather patterns that are going to be major events that don't show up for years at a time. oftentimes people will experience a major weather event in their lifetime, and they're gonna think, oh my gosh, this is terrible and horrible. What have we done? um, and in reality, a big part of it is related to this massive overhead pattern that's always in the works. It's always driving and churning forward. Not to say that we humans don't contribute to some weather impacts, but also let's acknowledge that there's also a really big long wave pattern in play that you're really only going to see events from like once in a lifetime if you live to be 50, 80, 90 years old.
Wow, really
So
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, a lot of it is just boiling down, distilling down to recognizing the hazards of weather and how it's going to affect your aviation units, right? Like we were always on the lookout for gusting winds that affected the helicopters in a way, like they can't even try to start their engines when the winds are gusting at a certain level. I don't remember what that level is now. It's been a long time. But keeping track of lightning storms, also troop safety, like the heat index, understanding when it's really not safe for super intense physical activity outside, that type of stuff. It was all really about keeping everyone safe.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting also to think about like the layers of impact, coming from airborne myself, knowing like as you mentioned, right, if you're taking a helicopter to a location, if you're jumping all the time, I mean, I didn't know anything about it, but I knew that we were going to get a green light or not based on weather patterns. So,
Right.
yeah, cool to hear your perspective and kind of like I guess where it comes from in terms of, who's monitoring and whatnot.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up. And let's tie it back real quick to what we were talking about earlier of our formative years, right?
Hmm.
So I was a 19-year-old female Air Force weather girl, and I essentially was the go, no go for those type of missions,
Yeah.
or for, any aviation training missions, any real world missions. That was a big thing for me. That's how I earned one of my medals, was actually
Mm.
saying no when the conditions merited. Um, so yeah, formative years, my job is very important. I'm a voice
Yeah.
to be reckoned with. And, you know, take that sense of purpose and belonging into the civilian world and the corporate culture, and there's a gap there, right? Also talking about gaps. So, you know, that concept in itself, I believe, is one of the reasons that a lot of veterans struggle adapting to corporate America.
Yeah.
So, not
Great.
to sideline
Mhm.
from your questions, but great opportunity to kind of circle back on a fine point there.
Oh yeah, no, please, yeah, please do continue highlighting those points where you see, parallels. And I'll also add, you made me think as you were bringing this topic to light, responsibility. I think the responsibility of you saying a go or no go, which is really people's lives, literally bringing that into, civilian life. I mean, there's very few, I'll call it very few parallels that you can bring where, your day-to-day job is people's lives.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in construction, it's very real that way.
Hmm.
It's a nice direct correlation. And I this is almost a funny point of like veterans bring this intensity to their corporate role, and corporate America isn't always like, they don't always care. You're like, no, this is life or death. And they're like, calm down.
Yeah.
No, why would you ask me to do that? Right?
Totally, yeah. It's a great point. I think that's something, at least for me in my own experience, that I have to like frequently remind myself of, because it's, back to your original kind of comment and point of, building the foundations of adulthood. Like it's so ingrained in just my identity, who I am, that I have to certainly remind myself it's not to the extreme of that importance, and it's all right sometimes to let it calm down
Right,
a little bit.
right. Yeah. It's a little tough sometimes, but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So go jumping back to Fort Carson. So your first station, your first position in your job. Uh, Walk us through what that was like. Any kind of like, I don't know, memories or highlights come to mind?
Well, I would say I was just there to do the work. I was just
Hmm.
focused, head down. I knew I had a lot to learn. Um, and it was really just kind of going to work every day.
Hmm.
It got really fun for me when I got to start learning the additional things like the tactical training, the tactical equipment, the like I said, the Humvees. We were responsible for maintaining our own Humvees, doing our own PMCS. The Army guys loved it when we would come into their motor pool. I absolutely floored them when I changed out my own glow plugs. They couldn't figure out, like that just made their head go wild. Like, oh my gosh, the Air Force is doing something. You know what's interesting though, too, as I say this, like it wasn't, oh my gosh, this chick is doing something. It was just like, oh, the Air Force, holy smokes, they're actually taking care of their own stuff. I
That's
kind
funny.
of, I mean, let's speak to that for a moment too. I appreciated in the military that it really wasn't about like, oh my gosh, this female is doing something. Um, to me, one of the greatest disservices I got from serving was being taught that I was an equal, you know? We wear we wear our name badges, our patches, our rank, you know, clearly for everyone to see. So when you walk up to someone, you understand who you're talking to. You understand if you're above them or below them. You understand, what their job is, if you have an understanding of the patches, which, the Army folks never knew how to interpret all of our colorful Air Force patches, but um, that's that's a significant difference as well. You in the civilian world, you can't just walk up and know who you're talking to, nor can they understand the experience that you're bringing to the table. A lot of times because they have no way to have a concept of it. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's
But
some
yeah.
interesting aspect as well.
Yeah, very interesting point is that it's very clear in military world, even if you're a different branch, even if you're a different unit, even if you're different whatever, it's clearly stated and it's clearly understood what you are, what your rank is, what your role is, and how you're going to be interacting with one another. So, interesting concept to think of, generally speaking.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and oh, I suppose a fine point I was going to make on that too is like based on what I'm wearing, like they have a relative idea of what information I should know or what
Hmm.
type of tasks they can ask me to go do, right? And that's
Yeah.
job oriented. That is the job and the work. So I could take my BDU top off. I was in the BDU days. Like I could take my
Hmm.
BDU top off and a dude could wear it and it didn't matter. Like if it was the same rank, the same time and grade, the same career, we could both answer the same questions. We could both be tasked with the same responsibilities. And it was kind of a beautiful thing. And it's
Hmm.
something that is definitely a completely different world in corporate America on the
Yep.
civilian side.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. Good call out. Good point. Cool. So I think this probably brings us to the end of Fort Carson, at least the first time. From there, you deploy to Bosnia.
I did, yeah. So I had two combat deployments out of Fort Carson. The first was
Hmm.
Bosnia. in the late 90s, there was some stuff happening. Um, we were there for a peacekeeping mission. I think that's also an interesting detail that's lost on people who haven't served is yes, I'm a combat veteran. I deployed to a peacekeeping mission. So not everybody understands that, and when they throw around terms like combat veterans, they don't particularly understand the full breadth of what that is. But I
Yeah, I mean,
digress.
I think generally speaking, the you say military to someone just as a point blank word, their mind goes to the most recent movie they saw that connects to military. So I mean, yes, there's a big gap. There's a big gap between their knowledge and reality,
There
and then
is.
nuances of reality. Yeah.
Yeah, and it to be honest, it causes some struggles. I'm happy
Hmm.
to dig into that for a minute if you want, but
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so exactly what you said. Their understanding of who the military is based on whatever movie they saw last or whatever movie impacted them most.
Hmm.
And that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'm not throwing shade when I say this. You know, I did watch some of your previous interviews and oof, dang, I can't remember his name right now, but he said that he wanted to go into Annapolis just because of a cool movie he saw, right?
Hmm.
And and when he discovered that he couldn't get in, like he was no longer interested in that. So so I'm not talking about the movies and the Hollywood industry throwing any kind of shade, but I am saying we have to have an understanding that if that is the narrow tunnel through which we view the military, we're missing a lot of incredibly important detail. And you know, I've come up with some theories. I have a three box theory, and um, it's related to something I call the Hollywood lens. So that is really only understanding who the military is based on movies or video games or whatever it is that you may have absorbed through social conditioning.
Hmm.
um, and so the result is America sees veterans as either heroes, broken, or zeros. And so the heroes are all the cool, amazing movies, the things that inspired us when we were young, right? Um, Top Gun, of course, you know, so many roles that are sensationalized. The pilots, the berets, the SEALs, you know, even the infantry, to a large degree. And and that's Hollywood. Hollywood has to be sensational because their job is to entertain people. The problem is America is really only viewing veterans and service members based on something that was meant to be entertainment. So if we can broaden our vision, which is what I'm really trying to do right now, trying to change the narrative around the full breadth of who veterans really are, to understand that the pilot does not go anywhere without their maintenance crew. The maintenance crew doesn't get anything done without the supply sergeant. Supply sergeant doesn't do anything without having chow in the morning. You know, it's like it's such a huge um, support system for those very minute amazing. Let's not downplay the fact that the things that these folks did are amazing. They deserve applause and recognition and respect. But let's also acknowledge like holy smokes, they're like the tip of the pyramid and there's all these other people that are required for them to get their stuff done.
Hmm.
And when we overlook all those other people, I that's that's the zeros. Let me touch on the broken though real quick too. So we've got heroes, broken, and zeros. So the broken are those who are visibly struggling. Um, you know, addiction, anger, um, depression, whatever it may be, right? Um, so America really only sees like the heroes or the broken. The zeros are truly invisible veterans, and those are the folks that maybe they do make up that support pyramid, or maybe they're invisible for other reasons. There's all sorts of um, invisible veterans out there for varied reasons, and you'll just dig into all my stuff on LinkedIn to learn more about that later, I suppose. But the problem is that these invisible veterans, um, the zeros, they get overlooked and underutilized in corporate America. So essentially, a tool that was, or maybe not a tool, but something that was meant to be entertainment is now guiding employers in a way that it dictates how veterans are hired, retained, and fired. And so there's a lot of room for improvement here. If we can broaden the understanding of who veterans are, the value they bring, I think we can make a big difference. And one one point I want to bring up that is kind of an aha moment for a lot of folks is the fact that most of our veterans that take their lives by suicide never deployed. It's been the larger percentage for several years. And that tells me that these zeros, this larger portion, this population more likely to succumb to taking their lives by suicide, are being impacted as zeros due to imposter syndrome. Like, maybe they feel like they have to really inflate their story to feel valid. Maybe they don't feel like they can say, hey, I was just a weather observer, and be okay with it. Like, personally, I'm perfectly okay with it. Some folks aren't. Not to say it's wrong or right, it's a reality. Another issue is unfulfilled mission. So if a service member never got to deploy, they may feel like they didn't do their part in defending our company, or our company, our country, our liberties, our freedom, the way that they wanted to. If they can't live up to that Hollywood fantastic role, they feel like their service didn't count, which, hopefully we all know better. But in reality, that's a hurdle for some vets to get over.
Yeah.
So, I think one solution to that is us as fellow veterans always talking up our brothers and sisters, no matter what they did. Find a way to say how amazing they were, because it truly was. Every single role in the military was absolutely essential. We know that. But America doesn't necessarily know that. So that's what I'm working on. Let's change some narrative here.
That's
Um,
awesome.
and and the third category there that the zeros struggle with is the failure to adapt. And I'm going to be totally honest, I've had struggles with that in the construction industry. And I'm happy to share my story and how that impacted me. I don't know if today and now is the right time. We can do it later. Um, but it's important to recognize that there's some perceptions here that are kind of causing some damage.
Mm.
And the good news is, I believe there's some really simple ways to fix them.
Yeah.
So there's my sideline, my side note. It's perfect that you asked this, or that I went on this tangent when you asked about my deployment to Bosnia, because my own deployment to Bosnia was what helped me understand how important my role really was. So Bosnia was my first deployment. Um, I set up the first weather observing station on Camp Comanche, which was the aviation base for Bosnia, Kosovo, and Albania. And I remember one night it was like insanely foggy, frigid. I was on night shift, obviously. We did 12-hour shifts there for 4 months straight. That was fun. Living in tents until the Seabees came and built huts for us. But insanely cold, foggy night. A pilot comes in for a weather briefing. And, obviously the conditions I reveal are not conducive to doing anything. So he actually goes and stands in the corner. I've never had anyone do that before. But I'm used to the Army just kind of trying to harass me, so I figured it was along those lines. I didn't think anything of it. Every time I went up to the observation deck, he would come back for an update. And, when conditions are bad like that, you're checking the weather every 10 to 15 minutes. Alternatively, when the weather's good, you're checking it once an hour, just to give you an understanding there. So I'm going back and forth, checking, keeping my eye on the conditions. He's constantly checking in with me. And eventually he goes away. I was like, thank goodness. So as I go up for another view on the observation deck, which is a wood platform above our tent, I see these two figures walking toward me. And, like I said, it's foggy, there's light behind them. They're nothing but like shadow puppets to me. I don't know who they are. I do recognize the one that was the pilot standing in the corner. So they ask if they can join me up on deck. Absolutely. Yeah, let me show you what we're looking at here. So I walk them through the conditions, and I literally have this hand-drawn vicinity map that I drew. It was very technically drawn. I used a compass and laser rangefinders, so it was a good tool. But is what it is, it's a visibility chart, right? So literally you're like, okay, what is that physical feature over there? How far away is it? So that I know, do I have the visibility that you need to like take off and land safely? So that's what the tool is all about. So I showed them, I was like, okay, you see right here on this church, it's signified as a night visibility point. There's a small light on the front of it that you should be able to see. So we lined it up with the compass and the map, and they can't see it. And I was like, yes, that's exactly my point. You can't see it. So that means we don't have the visibility we need. I'll keep you updated. And as we're going through the conditions more, some light flashed on his friend's lapel. And I figured out I'm talking to a general. And I didn't even know it. So fast forward, eventually they had the conditions they needed. So they went. The aircraft and the supporting ground unit went. And I didn't even learn what was really happening until I was leaving the theater. So what really happened that night is that mission was going out to redirect Slobodan Milosevic as he was headed into a nearby village to uh, do his damage. He was known as the Butcher of the Balkans, and he was big on ethnic cleansing. So my go, no go interaction, I, I earned a medal for that. I earned a medal
Wow.
for saying no,
Hmm.
because safety was at stake. And the crazy thing to me is this is such a great testimony to the fact that you always do your job. Um, they were following procedures by not telling me, hey, airman, there's a huge thing at risk here. You need to support us. They're not allowed to do that. They cannot try to coerce you in any way. So they were following procedure, I was following procedure, and the mission didn't go until it was safe, but when it did, it was effective.
Mm.
If anyone doesn't know who Slobodan Milosevic is, it's worth an internet search. He eventually died in The Hague for war crimes. So I I love this story personally because it makes me feel like, yay, I contributed to something. But I also love this story because it shows that me, a lowly little nothing weather observer, is incredibly important.
Hmm.
And there's so many stories like mine throughout the military service. And these are the type of things that I want to help people understand better so that, when they're talking with a veteran, they don't lose interest because they figured out, oh, this person's not even a pilot or a SEAL or anything. Like, oh, they didn't even actually serve. I've watched that interaction happen many times, and it's heartbreaking to watch
Yeah. Yeah.
what happens over the veteran's face.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I digress.
No,
Um,
that's an amazing story. I think it also is testament to your work ethic, meaning you were consistently diligent to provide the correct information regardless of the pressure that was on you, which then ended up being only after, realizing after the fact that who you're talking to is a general, is a high ranking person. This is an amazing story, and it's a great. I love how you kind of weaved in, what you're working on today with veterans and their struggles and those three buckets to that story because it's a perfect kind of backdrop or example to kind of prove value to the entire system as you laid it out. So yeah, awesome, amazing story. Very cool to hear. Very cool to also hear that you were recognized for really just doing your job. Uh, right,
just
and
doing my
after
job.
right. But yeah, I mean, just learning the as you put it, right, you're uh, per se an entry level, right, a low ranking person who's not caving to pressure just because. So it's really neat. It's a really neat story.
Right. Yeah. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, coming back for that deployment, how long between Bosnia and your next deployment to Korea?
I don't even remember. I remember I had just bought a condo
Hmm.
and then I got orders to go to Korea. So there's another reality of military life that people don't really realize when you're talking about the sacrifice of the service member. Um, Thankfully, I found someone to rent my condo while I was gone. They only burned a couple iron-shaped holes in the carpet. It was a fellow military member, of course.
Yeah.
Who else irons that much? Um, but yeah, I don't remember honestly. It could have been less than a year that I was even back.
Hmm.
And my um my move to Korea was a official PCS, so it was for over a year. And I lived on oh, where did I live? Camp Humphreys. Yes, that sounds right. Camp Humphreys in Korea. Again, on the army base. The Air Force base was like further north. I would go up there every now and then just to go to the BX because it was so much nicer.
Yeah. So, I mean, in other words, you were like throughout your military career, you were essentially the Air Force representative for whatever branch you're being attached to, is what it sounds like.
Sure, yeah. Our whole unit was. It wasn't just me.
Right.
It was a whole unit of weather support. Yep.
Hmm. Yeah, interesting. So, in the Korea deployment, is your mission set like a similar one? Is it different? Walk us through what that deployment was like.
Yeah, it was pretty much the same. The big work I did in Korea was again a lot of fun. I we had to be able to rapid deploy. And we had this huge storage unit with all of our tactical equipment. We had like four different sets of equipment that all belonged to different army units. So when they did their inventory, we had to be able to like walk them through, like, here's all of your equipment. Look, we kept track of it.
Hmm.
And whoever came before me, like that room was nothing but a junk drawer. Um, it used to take us a full day to load up for a deployment or training exercise, camping
Mhm.
trip.
Mhm.
Um, so one of the big things I did was bring in storage shelving so that all the equipment could be rapidly deployed.
Mhm.
So I narrowed down our load up time from a full day to 1 hour.
Amazing.
Um, and that was with a map, like put everything where it belongs in the
Mhm.
rigs this way. And I was in charge of training all of the other cadre, we called them cadre, the other Air Force weather members that came from legit just from Air Force bases and didn't have this tactical knowledge. So then I would train them on all the additional tactical knowledge they needed to have. So that was a lot of fun for me.
Cool.
And then in addition, I still did my weather observing job, out on training exercises and such too.
Mhm.
So it was a that was a good experience also. Um, a
Culture.
really
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. What's your
I
question
I was
there?
I was gonna ask, like culturally speaking, did you feel, I also for Bosnia too, did you feel like you were, I don't know, in a different world, different country, different culture, etc., or were you just very, inner with the base and the teams that you're working with, the U.S. service members that you're working with?
Absolutely. Yeah, there was definitely some good culture moments, some good reality moments.
Mm.
Like in Bosnia in particular, when you go off base, you have to have an interpreter and depending on what you're doing. I did some humanitarian stuff while I was there too because what else are you going to do? So I collected school supplies and such for the orphanages and helped convoy out and deliver them. So we always had to have an interpreter, a chaplain, a civil affairs representative with us. Like, so the civil affairs representative had to have an understanding of what the latest politics was, because then they became kind of the friction point between us and whoever it is that we encounter on our way. And Bosnia was just a melting pot of, you never knew what, I call them tribes, what tribe you're going to run into, because there's so many different factions of so many different religions and ethnicities that, you know, that was really a big part of the problem over there.
Interesting.
So we had to have someone escort us constantly. Um, and it's eye-opening to walk around villages with your M16 and be looking around at all the buildings are just riddled with bullet holes.
Mm.
People still trying to make life happen out of derelict buildings. There was one orphanage we would visit had no windows. It was a brick building and no windows. um, so as a young person, it was a great opportunity to understand, like, for one, how incredibly fortunate we are to be American citizens.
Mhm.
I mean, hands down. Um, there's nothing like that. Even in the worst neighborhoods of America, there's nothing like what I saw in Bosnia. Um, and as I walked through the streets, I had this sense like I want to come back here someday and help them rebuild. Several years later, I did go back to the Balkans. I went back to Albania, and I've been helping with some volunteer construction work. But that's aside from the point. But culturally in Korea, that was interesting. Right around the bases, they were kind of tired of us GIs being around, being noisy, being loud. Um, Once you get away from the bases, the folks are pretty happy to see you
Mm.
and curious and courteous, but rightfully so. There was, the villages right around the bases were I don't know. I would assimilate it to the environment you find directly around a college campus.
Right. Sure. It's a good analogy.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah. Interesting.
both were a wonderful opportunity to understand different cultures in a very
Hmm.
meaningful way, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. And on going back to kind of where I cut you off and asked that question, I think you were going to add something to that career deployment, if you remember.
I don't. Oh, I was going to talk about just the culture of being an Air Force person on an Army base. Holy
Yeah,
smokes.
please. Yeah.
Talk about being a target. um, this is what one of the things I miss about military service and being around other service members is that we're just allowed to give each other a hard time. It's like our love language, right? I tell people we're really great at talking shit to each other's faces and then
Yeah.
nice behind your back. Like
Hmm.
that's how it goes. That's how
Yeah.
we express that we respect and love each other. Um, so you want to talk about cultural gap with corporate America. Don't try that. It doesn't go
Right.
over well all the
Right.
time. That can be hazardous to your career.
Right. It's like yeah, in military life, it's what I like to make the analogy with that I think most people could understand. It's like a healthy rivalry, like you would see within sports, on like just
Absolutely.
a positive kind of a note where it just pushes you to do more, better, be the better, side of the equation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And where it's funny to yell at each other to get off the grass for some
Hmm.
reason, that's
Yeah.
absolutely hilarious, right?
So finishing up with the Korea deployment, anything in between Korea and Kosovo come to mind? If not, we could jump into the Kosovo deployment.
Yeah, there wasn't much in between. I mean, I went back to Colorado. I was fortunate enough to always go back to
Hmm.
my original duty station, which is
Yeah.
very odd for a military member, but because there's so much additional that needs to be known with the tactical army support side of weather support. I think that's why they kept sending me back is because like they knew I already had this extra skill set, so why try to build someone else with it, right? Like just
Hmm.
keep using that. So yeah, I don't think there's really anything significant between um Korea and Kosovo that happened at Fort Carson, but Kosovo was interesting. There was some pivotal things happening, there when I was there also. That was the early 2000s. And so essentially I was in Kosovo when they finally got their dotted line north boundary between themselves and Serbia. So some pivotal things happening there as well. But other than that, other than, accidental missile firings down the flight line, I mean, it wasn't that exciting.
Sure. And I'm guessing also like mission set was similar to what you're used to, so you're kind of just getting better at what you're doing over time.
Yep, absolutely. And
Hmm.
I suppose one pivotal thing that happened between Korea and Kosovo was that I earned my staff sergeant stripe.
Hmm.
So, um, I was a go-getter. I had a lot of energy and a lot of discipline and power when I was younger. And I took every opportunity to get early promotion. And so I was actually able to make staff sergeant in 4 years, which was an accomplishment. And in the Air Force, though, even when you earn a rank, you don't necessarily get to wear it right away. You have to wait for someone else to take it off. So the cool thing that happened for me in Kosovo is that my line number came up and I got to put my staff sergeant stripes on. And my supervisor, my NCO, wanted to make it a special moment. So he got me FaceTime with two generals during the battle update briefing. And I actually got my staff sergeant stripes put on by two generals, which is unheard of. I mean,
Hmm.
Air Force, I have to say they really underplay the promotion um, celebrations, or at
Hmm.
least from what I had always seen, it was always just like so and so shows up to work and oh my gosh, oh, they're wearing their new stripe. Congrats, you know? There's no pomp and circumstance around it. So for it to be celebrated that way and have like this special opportunity for two generals to actually pin my stripes on was pretty cool.
That's very cool. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
remember? I always like asking this question and like any um highlight kind of a moment, accomplishment moment in military service. Do you remember how you felt in that time?
I felt really humbled, to be
Mm.
honest, and a little bit like, wow, is this really happening? Just and I think I gave a short little speech, somewhere around that of like, thank you. This means a lot to me. Like I'm so used to just showing up to work the next day with my new stripe and it's just another day at work. So to have it memorialized this way was really an honor and,
Yeah.
and of course it's two generals, so of course I'm going to make a point that I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very cool. Really, really neat experience. And I agree with you. I would love to see, just generally speaking, it be celebrated a little bit better. Because I think it is a cool accomplishment. It's a good accomplishment to celebrate and to appreciate. Um, cool. So if anything, if nothing else memorable, on Kosovo, sounds like you get back to Fort Carson again and your last kind of rotation for your service.
Yeah, so my last rotation um ended up being a lot longer than I thought it was going to be.
Mm.
Because I came home from Kosovo in August of 2001. So, if you remember any major events that happened shortly following August, that would be September 11th.
Hmm.
So, that was an interesting day. Like, I got up, I was putting my uniform on, getting ready for work. My roommate had a habit of putting the news on every day, every morning. And so I came out, to drive out to the airfield and she was like, "Man, an airplane just ran into one of the buildings in New York City." I was like, "Oh, that's terrible." I was like, "That's a crazy accident, right? Like that's mind-blowing.
Right.
How could anybody, how can you have an accident that bad?" And by the time I drove out to the airfield, it was maybe a 15-minute, 20-minute drive. And I would always go into the back gate so I didn't have to deal with like the ID check and stuff. This is back in the day when there was gates without
Right.
booths.
Right.
Those don't exist anymore. Um, so I was going in the back gate and it was closed. And I was like, this is weird. So I ended up going all the way around the post to go into the main entrance. And security was way more intense than I had ever experienced. And I was like, this is really strange. And they let me through, I get out to the airfield and all the TVs are on. And then I discover there's a second plane. And so then, like, you just felt this heaviness, like, oh, something's happening. And because of that, I was stop lost because I was, aviation support attached to intel units. Um, so I couldn't get out. I was supposed to get out shortly after my Kosovo deployment was over, but stop loss kept me in for another like up to almost a year, I think. I don't remember all those details, but yeah, I I couldn't get out after that. So then it was response to 9/11, um, completely different way of operating.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, walk us through it, that what that was like in that cycle, and if you can kind of remember, I'd be really interested in hearing like the differences of what you just mentioned, right? Operating. If there's like some, I don't know, like key factors you can kind of compare contrast.
Yeah, since I was already stateside by then, I don't know that
Right.
it affected our day-to-day operations a whole lot,
Hmm.
but for me personally, but the base around me, everybody was getting ready to go.
Hmm.
And that was that was a tremendous energy to be caught up in. And a lot of people were really happy and excited because they felt like they were getting to fulfill the mission that they joined the service for.
Hmm.
So it was an interesting energy for
Sure.
sure.
Yeah,
And I
sure.
was I was glad to be, a support. I had my I had my new name tapes printed up in the desert cami, and I never sewed them on a uniform because they ended up letting me out eventually. But I would have gladly gone. That was my whole. I think when you step up and you raise your right hand, you do it knowing that that's a possibility, and um, I would have gladly gone and served in that aspect.
Okay. Side note, digressing a little bit or taking a step back, whichever's the right word there. I want to hear a little bit of the master driver course because I know that's a really fun course.
Oh
I
my
would
gosh,
love to hear your kind of recollection or experience through it.
that was so much fun. Um, So we had an Army instructor, master driver, teach us. So that's why it was master driver course.
Hmm.
I wasn't becoming a master driver, I was learning from a master.
Sure.
And this guy, oh my gosh, he was incredible. Like, if I could paint a picture for you, like John Wayne in camouflage, like this guy just had zero F's to give. And um, he wanted to test our capabilities a little bit. So he put us through some really rough terrain, like serious pucker factor terrain. Um, there was points where he put us down embankments that were so steep, like all you can see is the riverbed in front of you. Like you can't see anything anywhere else. um, there was there was definitely um, times he sent us across a couple different creeks. Um, I don't think any of them were officially rivers, but one of them felt like a river because it's a trip to drive into water and to watch the water raise in the cab and to know like you're supposed to keep going, just keep going.
Yeah.
um, all of that was just it was fun because it was a push of your personal boundaries and it was growth in a scary but protected and guided way. I do believe that's something the military does so well that's really missing in corporate America is giving your people enough rope to go experience the scary shit, but know that like they're supported. Like, go do it, learn from it, and stretch. But I also got your back
Yeah.
because, I mean, let's face it, they have your back because if they lose the $1 million piece of equipment, it's on them,
Right.
right? So, it was a lot of fun. And it was fun when I could start taking out other members of my unit and teaching them just like the basic capabilities of the Humvee. I didn't put them through anything gnarly because I didn't have faith that like I would have backup.
Right.
But I did teach them, like the um, what is it called? The independent differentials and everything, like how you
Mm.
can switch the traction on the wheels if you're spinning or if you've got a high wheel or whatever it may be. Um, all the different configurations a Humvee can be put into. We had to do that, and we had to test like how quickly we could flip them all over, like from a four-seater to a two-seater, from a soft top to a hard top, all the stuff. How to, you know, change change the tires. I already knew how to do the glow plugs, but all the stuff that you really should know. I mean, they're slow as heck, but they're such capable pieces of machinery. It was just fun. They're a bear to drive on a civilian highway, especially if you're towing a trailer, because you get caught in all the wheel ruts. But still fun nonetheless. We also, that was another culture issue of Air Force on an Army base, is that us Air Force folks were authorized to be single drivers. So we didn't have to have a truck commander with us every time. But at the time on Fort Carson, every Army member was required to have a truck commander. So I got yelled at a lot for not having an additional person in the truck with me. And then, I just whip out my laminated paper. I'm like, I'm
That's what it's
allowed
about.
by
Right.
myself. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's all about safety, right? And
Yeah.
those plastic windows legit are tough to see out of. I just
Mhm.
always zipped them down so I could actually see.
Yeah. 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 No, yeah, I
But
know that's really cool. I know it's a great course to go through, especially if you're learning from someone who's, very experienced that's they can do
oh my
crazy
God,
stuff with those machines. It's really wild.
that guy was crazy. It was awesome.
That's great. So at what point, so it sounded like when you were finishing up from Kosovo that you were already like seeing an end to your service, um, got extended a little bit, but walk us through, generally speaking, like the mindset of, okay, I finished service and I'm thinking about, finishing, leaving and next.
Yeah, so um it's interesting because you have no concept of what's ahead.
Hmm.
And it felt it felt scary, but also like I need to get out of here. You
Hmm.
know, very similar to how I felt when I went into the military.
Hmm.
But I did, I had some good reasons for getting out. I knew that knowing myself, if I would have gone for a second enlistment, a full second enlistment, um, then I would have been like, oh, I may as well just stay in for 20 now. And to be honest, one of my big drivers was the fact that I knew I wanted a family, and family life dynamics is tough enough without adding the complication of military life to it.
Yep.
That's one point worth making right there too, is, when America says, all of us veterans are heroes, you sacrifice so much. Yeah. I mean, even if you don't deploy, you sacrifice getting any resemblance of a normal life. Like your kids don't get to spend, more than 4 years in the same school, possibly. You don't, you move into some houses and never actually unpack because you're leaving again soon anyhow. Um, Relationships are tough, connection is tough. Um, so many reasons. But yeah, I knew I wanted a family someday, and I kind of accepted that I didn't want to add the complication of military life to that endeavor.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that makes total sense. So when you finish, two-part question. One was, what that felt like to finish your service, and then two is we'll move into, from there the transition period, military to civilian life.
Oh yeah. Um, so yeah, getting out, I knew that, so I was dealing with some stuff. I was dealing with some stuff that came about during my deployments. And I knew that it was going to be smart for me to go back to um like as I got out of the service, to go back somewhere that was like slow paced, and that was familiar to me, and I could get used to like the civilian world again. And so I chose to go back to Klamath Falls. And and that's a great segue into like how and why I came to the construction world, really. Um, I bought a house for my dad that he still owned, which is one that we lived in growing up. And I spent 5 years rebuilding it as I lived in it, which I don't recommend to anybody if you can help it. And and then I figured, after I did that for a while, oh, I did get a weather job, by the way, right after getting out.
Nice.
So I got a weather job as a civilian on that air base for
Yeah.
the jets. And I was bored out of my mind because the jets don't care what the weather is. They're just going
Mm.
to punch through it anyway. I was like, I felt so insignificant. It was good money though. So um, I sat there and did schoolwork on my shift or whatever. But um, yeah, eventually I officially started going to school for construction. So
Mm.
I got an associate's degree in like carpentry, learning how to actually build first,
Awesome.
um, framing, installing windows, roofing, flashing, learning how to mix concrete,
That's
all the
awesome.
fun stuff. Yeah.
That is all the fun stuff. Yep.
So then from there, I did get a full-time job at a local heavy civil company,
Hmm.
but I felt like they were way underutilizing me, and I felt like I wasn't going to get the opportunity I was wanting or capable of um, unless I had a bachelor's degree. I just thought that was kind of the reality of where I was at. So I moved north and enrolled in Oregon State University in their construction engineering management program. And by this time, I had my daughter. So she was 4 months old when I started my bachelor's program, which is another thing I don't recommend to anybody. That was so tough. Like I'm so thankful for, everything and we're all good, but that was difficult. It was
Sure.
difficult to like for one enter a college program and you're 10 years older than everybody else there.
Yep.
So you don't get the study buddy opportunities, you don't get the frat boy freaking crib notes, you don't get any of that stuff. So you're at a huge disadvantage. But let's add a baby to that and
Yep.
see, that's where my gray hair comes from. um it was great though. We made it through. That was perseverance and resilience all the way. um she got to walk across the graduation stage with me, so
Amazing.
that was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Before like continuing, into your civilian career, I want to, take this segue as an opportunity to highlight, that transition period and two things. You had mentioned something earlier, so if you want to, bring it up and hash that out, I'm here for it. And in that thought process, to talk about, hindsight advice, right, for other service members and or veterans going through a transition.
sure, yeah. I think many of us veterans will agree that the TAPS program, uh, in the Air Force Transition Assistance
Hmm.
Program, the different branches call it different things, um, was not helpful compared to the reality of what needs to happen for you to actually have a successful transition. And hmm, there's there's so many things that could be done better. One thing I would say, I'll reiterate because I already mentioned it earlier, is that it's so important to understand that you need advocates and you
Mm.
need people that are going to stand up for you. You need people that are willing to guide you. Um, and I think it's tough to find. I I would say if you have connection to someone in an industry that you're interested in, like run with it. because it's so difficult to start from scratch.
Yep.
Um, that's that's just a reality of it. But there's a lot of good tools out there for employers and veterans to do the whole translate your military experience into civilian skills. But it really goes beyond that. Organizations, I think, have a part in this, and there can be a lot done to help them understand what it means to like truly support a veteran, to truly support and honor a veteran. Um, and when I say honor, I mean like honor the stuff they've already done.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Yep.
a very simple example would be when someone starts new in a company, it's very typical that you have to be there a particular amount of time before you earn certain vacation, right? So, how about this idea? How about that time um, is fortified by the time they spent in the service? Like,
Yep.
how about even though they're starting in your company today, their vacation is based on the 8 years they spent in the service? Like, can
Mhm.
we do that? Can we just start out that way? That would be wonderful because they're already starting over from ground zero. They're it's a completely different playing field and they're behind the curveball because they're going to be at least, well, I mean, most veterans are going to be probably at least 4 years older than everyone else in an entry level position of whatever they're doing. Um, I was 10 years older. So it's a big disadvantage. I mean, there's advantages to it too, don't get me wrong, but there's also
The,
some significant disadvantages.
yeah. You like usually the usually specifically the beginning is the big disadvantage. Once you're able to kind of ramp up, then you can leverage for advantage. But it's just purely on the basis of starting something new. You just got to get like the foot in the door, got to get started, got to understand what's what, and then provide yourself the opportunity to excel. That said, I totally agree with you, and I think it would be vastly beneficial for everyone, the companies included, to actually perceive veterans, right, perceive their service as being a means of, okay, yeah, you're an entry level job, but you're not 20 years old. So
Yes.
yeah, I agree, it's
Please,
a great
can we
idea.
start doing that?
Yeah, yeah, I would love to see that, I really would.
I mean,
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say what a nice, simple way to give a
Mm,
head nod and pay respect to the
agreed.
time they served,
Agreed, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. First time I've heard that, and I 100% agree, and I 100% would love to see companies do that. So where I had paused you was degree, right? Construction management. Um,
Mm.
I was going to ask, and you were kind of alluding to it. You kind of answered it earlier on with your grandfather in terms of like, why you had interest in going into construction as an industry.
Yeah, so I would say my grandfather was like, he planted the seed.
Mm,
I would say another contributing factor was absolutely my dad. So I grew up with my dad doing projects on the house,
yeah.
and so he was a writer. He was a writer for gun magazines, and he wrote a couple books around firearms, mostly like cowboy shoot 'em up Colt
Mhm.
firearms. But he was not a builder, but he did work on the house. So when I bought that house from him later, I had a lot of things I needed to fix, and it was mm, it was fun to me just because it was something that was like, for one, it kind of came natural, but for two, it's a wonderful opportunity to be creative and functional, right? Like, I suppose that's one thing I love about construction in general is that you can create something that's incredibly beautiful and also incredibly technically complicated.
Mhm.
Um, like it drives me toward it every time.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm gonna make a silly joke, and it's also not invisible, like, been the weather girl in military service. It's it point joke aside, point being is you get to actually build something that's tangible, which is what always was really attractive for me in the industry, right? Is like you have a end result that you could actually look at and feel at and understand what you did to contribute to it. So yeah, it's awesome for all the reasons you mentioned. So going through your degree, you then started in the industry as an entry level junior position. How did you go from that position to starting a company?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay. So, yeah, I started as a project engineer for a large general contractor in the Portland metro area and got some great experience.
Mhm.
I was given responsibility for two of the office towers in downtown Portland for doing all of their TI infills. I did that for like 3 years. And while I was at it, I built a program for the company to utilize that allowed them to manage the project management and financial tracking aspects of those
Mm,
projects on like a sustaining basis instead of like churning up a new set of contracts for every project because there was hundreds of projects in a year and it was
yeah,
all for the same owner. So like let's do this a different way.
yeah.
Um, there's one example of a time that I suggested an efficiency and they actually let me do it. There's also been times I suggested an efficiency and once again they were like, chill out, calm down.
Right, right,
We've always done it this way.
right. I was, by the way, I was actually kind of the thought process was like turning in my head, like, wow, that's one, awesome that you implemented such a thing. Two, surprising that they just accepted the implementation of such a thing. But that's really cool. It's really neat.
Yeah, well, I mean, it took a lot to build it. I had to pull in four like major heads of the company
Hmm.
to get all the parts and pieces together. Like I had to have someone there from legal and finance and I don't even remember what all, but it was an undertaking.
Sure.
They made a huge investment whether they knew it or not. But they're still using the program today. The
It's
the
awesome.
project manager that still uses it sends me a note every now and then just saying thank you. So that's awesome.
That is awesome. And that's also a great example of kind of what we were alluding to before, where like, yes, you're, a junior person in this role in that position technically, but also technically you're not a junior level mind, right? Like you're
Exactly.
more experienced
Yeah.
than other people in that spot.
Yeah. And let's talk about this for a minute. Aside from them allowing me to, create efficiency in my own work and for whoever came after me, I definitely felt like, I was not being given the recognition for what I was truly doing, which I was my title was project engineer and I was paid as a project engineer, but I was truly acting as a project manager.
Hmm.
But I wasn't getting paid as a project
Yeah.
manager because I'd only been there 3 years.
Yeah.
So there's a problem,
Yeah.
right? That's a big problem. Um, that line of thought and that line of treatment, among several other things, is what inspired me to, go work for a different GC. So I worked for several GCs, four in the Portland area, and every single one of them I got a great experience out of. I was pretty diligent in my career to learn different roles because I wanted to understand the true um, machine of the team. I wanted to understand how all the different cogs had to work together, because I did feel like eventually I was going to be in this leadership role, which I'm in now, and having a deep understanding of how the project manager behaves affects the superintendent and vice versa, or how the project manager does their work, how it affects the project administrator or the accountant or the coordinator. Everyone calls them something different. Um, I wanted to I wanted to really know those intricacies, so I was really purposeful in asking for different roles. So, I was a project engineer, a project manager, a superintendent, an assistant superintendent. For one project, I was a project manager and a superintendent. The workflow was very efficient on that. What else did I do? Oh, I was an estimator for one of the general contractors I worked with. And then I also did some work for a small federal contractor because I was like, this is the only arena that I haven't really been in yet. I want to understand that better. Um, so I was pretty um, well versed in several different areas, which was great because I really wanted to understand how that all needed to click together in order for the work to get done and move efficiently. But let's see how it led to me starting my own business. So let's also touch on what I mentioned earlier was failure to adapt. It's important that we can just like share stories and be real about these
Yeah.
experiences. And I know I'm not the only one with this issue, but I did actually get laid off from the second GC I ever worked for. And it was absolutely astounding to me because I had never lost a job. I've never even had a bad mark on a progress report ever, since my military days. High school, yes. Military on, no. Um, so it was a huge blow to like my confidence, my sense of self, my like, am I even supposed to be in construction? Like so many things, right? Um, Obviously I picked myself up and dusted myself off um, 3 times actually. But the reason that I was laid off from that company is absolutely to do with another aspect that I built in my military career, which is ambition. Um, so I expressed that within 10 years of when I filled out that paper, that my long-term goal was to be a voice at the executive table. And then I was laid off shortly after. And the reason was that there was not room in the company for my desired career path. And that's the only reason they would give me. So, um, as you can imagine, that was quite a blow for me. And let's also talk about something, in the military, you don't get fired. You get reclassed, maybe, unless you do something really ridiculous, then you just get booted, right? Like, get out. Um, so thankfully, I've had a lot of time to reflect and to try to wrap my mind around how are other veterans also experiencing this? And of course, it's not the best experience, the best thing to have experienced, but I've learned a lot from it. And even better than what I've learned from it is what I am working to share with other organizations around, how their company structure or their team structure or their culture really is not veteran supportive. And it's not for sake of pointing fingers, it's for sake of empowering companies that truly want to be supportive of veterans in a way that allows them to create environments where, veterans can thrive and not just, barely survive. So there's a lot of really good work being done out there by other organizations that are veteran focused. Like, let's focus on providing help and resources for the veterans so that the veteran can go get themselves some help, right? But something that was gifted to me in this understanding, this experience that I had is like, when you're when you're in a place that um, challenges your mental health, your sense of self, um, it's incredibly difficult to go get yourself help. I
Yeah.
mean, let's talk about like you were just trucking along before, but now like now you've got a flak vest on. And so everything you do takes more effort because now you're carrying more weight, right? And then so one flak vest is your first layoff. Let's put another flak vest off for the second layoff and another one. So now you're traipsing around with what? I forget how much flak vests weigh. 10 pounds. Now you're traipsing around with like, obviously this is a weird metaphor, but under the weight of all this shit that just happened, like you're expected to be the one to go get yourself help. So being in this place that I've been with this experience, due to this experience, has helped me realize like, because we've now limited their capacity to help themselves, let's find ways for organizations to come around them and actually create environments, for one, where they don't get in the dark place to start with. And the responsibility for getting the help isn't totally on them because someone else has their back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So,
the point of preventative, right? I mean, I think
yeah,
generally speaking, we're starting to hear a little bit more like preventative health, and it's the exact same thing versus, you know, response to an issue. So if you can get ahead of, the response or the retroactive, helping yourself, solving an issue, the preventative is way more effective.
right.
Hmm.
I call it let's be proactive rather than reactive.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Reactive. Yeah, that was the word I was,
Yeah,
yeah, blanket idea. Proactive. Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of really valid reactive tools and
Sure. Yeah.
they're important, but hey, yes, also let's do some more of this proactive business too
Yeah.
and see if we can prevent folks from even getting to that place.
Right.
That's
Or at a minimum, it's the just awareness and knowledge around, proactively understanding something so that if in the case you are in a bad spot, you have that knowledge when you're not with your, flak vest on, when you're not like blocked off or just, you know,
right.
in a heavy place. So totally agree. There's no reason to reject what you're saying, right? It's just a matter of here, learn right now when you're in a good place to learn. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Also out of curiosity, like going back to like the reason that you received for getting laid off, you know, for whatever it's worth, right? Also as an entrepreneur, someone who would hire people, if I had an employee that said that to me, I would say, okay, great. This is what I like to see in order for you to, traject upward. if
Right.
if at the end of the day they don't make it, okay. If at the end of the day they do make it and I don't have a role for them, also okay. Then it's up to them to decide they want to continue or not. Like, how is it in my benefit as an employer to just be like, okay, bye, because you have ambitions? That doesn't make any sense to me, for whatever it's worth. Just putting it out there.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And that's something that um us veterans need to accept, like the logic isn't
Right.
always a player in these decisions.
Hmm.
And let's speak to what you just mentioned of if I had an employee that wanted to get there, I would say, yay, here's the things you have to do to get there.
Hmm.
So that's what's missing for a lot of
Sure.
organizations is that the pathway. This is what you need to get there.
Hmm.
Because they view that as super complicated or they view that as too much work because someone has to hold them accountable, right? So that's part of a culture shift that I'm also trying to encourage is that like let's make these pathways more clear.
Hmm.
So then it's cut and dry. You don't even have to worry about making emotional assessments or judgments on someone you don't even know anyway.
Right. Right.
Like, let's make this a black and white thing. do they possess this skill and this skill and this skill? How long have they been doing this skill and this skill and this skill?
Yeah.
Right? Like the military training programs,
Hmm.
I don't ever say that out loud to organizations because I don't want them to feel like I'm trying to make their place like the military. Obviously, we don't want that, but some structure
Right.
couldn't hurt.
Right. Yep. Absolutely agreed. So what I'd like to tap into now is starting a company and growing your clientele.
Sure. Yeah. So I started my company because I wanted to create a direct pathway for veterans into construction management roles,
Hmm.
regardless of if they had the requisite education. Not everybody can go out and get that bachelor's degree for one reason or another. Um, they're still incredibly valuable, right? So I had the idea that I would hire veterans as PMs and just train them and we would all be fine and dandy. And that's still a decent idea, but I had an aha moment maybe 2 years ago when I was on contract for another company. So owning my business, I was contracted out to someone and they really loved my work. They wanted to hire me as an employee and they would not leave me alone about it. And I had to have kind of a little come to Jesus meeting with myself of like, hey, this is fun work. I'm enjoying working with this team. Like maybe I should just be an employee because it would be a lot less complicated for me. Being a business person and entrepreneur is there's a lot of complication to it. So, um I had to really do some soul searching on whether or not I was willing to give up the business that I started for very good reasons, right? So that I could be an employee. Like that would have been so much more convenient for me. But at the end, ultimately, obviously, I decided like, sorry, I can't do that. And I ended up, having to walk away from that contract. Not walk away, like we ended it legally as we should have, but um it was an eye-opening experience for me that made me also realize like I need to find a more impactful way to get my message out. And that's when I started doing learning how to do public speaking and how to write speeches and how to put courses together. Um, and the material, all of that is based on is really around like let's try to change this narrative. Let's give organizations resources to be proactive and create more supportive environments for their veterans. Um, let's give them something better to roll with than good intentions. um, so that was a reality check for me of like, okay, my construction business, the consulting work that I do over the course of now until I retire, like, yeah, I could probably help maybe, I don't know, 30 veterans if I end up getting some good contracts and I'm really humming along, right? And and then that's when I realized that's not enough for me. I want to do more. So the public speaking aspect is when I realized, oh, if I could impart my line of thought, my processes, these things that I've been gifted through tragedy, um, and I could help so many other people in our industry understand this, which I'm starting with the construction industry, just because, you know, we have the construction industry has a high suicide rate, number two in all industries. And we know that our veteran brothers and sisters struggle with this too, right? And so we have like this Venn diagram of disaster when we have veterans in construction. I'm not saying veterans shouldn't go in construction. I'm saying like, hey, let's walk into this with our eyes wide open and create better environments for them. Um, So if I can utilize my voice in the construction industry and have everyone leave the room feeling empowered to make a difference, then wow, that's way more than 30 veterans, right?
Hmm. Absolutely is. Yeah. It's a
Yeah, so
great,
that's
it's a great way to answer, the question I was asking in terms of like scaling, right? That's one, really hard to, speak publicly, generally speaking, in front of crowds. Two, it's also a great way to scale, right? Get in front of more people um, as a business owner. So that's really awesome.
right, absolutely. Yeah. And you know, aside from that, I'm also doing some construction focused consulting work,
Hmm.
helping general contractors and small businesses, especially on projects where there's incentive to hire these small businesses, you know, like women owned, veteran owned,
Right.
minority, disadvantaged business enterprises, the whole list, right?
Right.
Um, Having been the PM responsible for bringing small businesses into my projects and help them be successful and understanding the challenge behind that when you're already running the project is what inspired me to offer this service is like it's kind of like a, you know, a bolt on where I can stand side by side with the project manager and I can help um, fortify the the services of these small businesses. So I offer like um, certified payroll support, cash flow management, especially cash flow management for planning labor, because that is a nail in the coffin for so many small businesses.
Yeah.
Um, and then for federal work, you know, understanding the whole federal compliance piece, that's a whole
Hmm.
nother monster. But those are the avenues right now where I'm focusing my energy in the construction world. And um, also bidding on small projects, but they really have to be perfectly right um, because I am so small. And I'm only willing to work with trade contractors that I've already done work with and I know well and I know that are going to help um, or going to do the work like spot on. And I don't
Hmm.
have to be really managing them
Sure. Yeah.
um, as much as I would, you know, with folks I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really, yeah, really, really neat to hear kind of the niche that you found yourself creating and building upon. Let's touch on, I know we've kind of weaved this in and out through the conversation, but let's give it an opportunity to plug in translatable skills, military to civilian profession.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Um, there's so many. I would say I want to touch on one that's got pros and cons. Um, which is our ability to communicate directly,
Mm.
right? To be blunt and to the point. I particularly love communicating that way. However, um, not everyone appreciates that.
Mhm.
Uh, they they view it as too cold or whatever, who knows, too controlling. Um, that's one that's a challenge, and I believe that takes work on both the veteran and the employer or coworker or whoever side. Like veteran, you could benefit from learning how to soften your communication a little bit. I have softened my communication a little bit.
Mhm.
And then, you know, on the other side of it, these folks can also learn like this person is coming at me with some different formative skills. You know, they just have a different skill set. Like they aren't trying to be an a-hole. Um, they're just doing what they do. So some grace from both sides, I think would be beneficial.
Sure.
Other transferable, translatable skills, the ability to execute a project with integrity and precision, I think, is huge in the construction industry. The attention to detail in work altogether, um, but also in particular for safety matters. Remember when life used to start out, every group gathering started with a safety briefing? Like, let's bring some of that back around.
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of folks in the construction industry are pretty good with that, but some aren't. Um, what else?
That's like your point of translating or converting the veterans into PMs. It's like the really the core of what you want in a PM is already embedded in a veteran. It's just a matter of saying, okay, well, you're used to doing that in whatever, job you had in the military. Now it just has to be converted to this project and construction. But that the core like mechanism of what you need to be as a PM is already there. It already exists. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, and you just pointed out,
Yeah.
you just pointed out them exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
but let's also acknowledge there's some things that need to be fine-tuned and invested in because like I said in the very beginning, uh veterans don't really approach work with the idea of like, what profit am I rolling
Right.
over with
Right.
this?
Right.
They do not have that financial acumen, and
Hmm.
unless it is spelled out, they're not they're not going to get it.
Right.
And why hold that back?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. The analogy, in case it's helpful for you at any point, but the analogy I always like to make is like there are those core principles, yes. Then if you were anybody going into a different company, there's always going to be a gap of like, okay, this is the new company culture, this is the new company kind of like objectives, the new priorities. And I kind of put what you just mentioned in that bunching of, okay, it's a new employee in a new role. There is going to be a, workup period. There's going to be a understanding of bringing that person into the company and then ramping them up. So I 100% agree with you. I also think the delta is like very small because it should be perceived as, yeah, just a new employee, new company.
absolutely, yeah. What I see happening often is veterans getting thrown in the deep end.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're badass, they can handle this, you know? And then if that's the perception, then maybe the veteran's afraid to speak up because
Mm-hmm.
they're like, oh, I need to be seen as a badass. I can't tell them I don't understand what the hell they're saying. There's some significant challenges there.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. 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 Well, closing out before we get to our final two questions, just want to see if there was anything I didn't ask or anything you want to add.
Oh goodness. I think I've added a lot. No, I
Awesome.
don't I can't think of anything else that I would.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So getting to the final two questions, we'll start with any book or books you like to recommend.
Yeah. So, because I've had the struggles with the failure to adapt and the being able to connect to
Hmm.
my coworkers, and peers, um, a book that was incredibly um, pivotal for me in my mindset on belonging was Brene Brown's, oh, what is it? Braving the Wilderness. Um, in there, she speaks about the fact that by belonging nowhere, then you belong everywhere. And that was a tough concept for me to accept at first, but the work I did to understand and accept it gave me a tremendous amount of freedom. And that's really what helped me just go ahead and decide to step out on my own, to accept the fact that, you know, maybe there isn't a construction company out there that I belong in right now, but I definitely belong in this industry. It's been shown to me over again. Um, And I love the idea that now I belong everywhere.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that other veterans could really benefit from. And, you know, if you guys feel weird about picking up a Brene Brown book, I would say just get over it.
Yeah. Or just order it, right? No one's gonna see you. So it's
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
No, but that
Whatever you
actually
need to do. Whatever you
yeah.
need to do, just read it.
That sounds right up my alley, and I'm gonna add that to my list. Really, really interesting. Great recommendation. Last but not least, very intrigued by this is what your wellness practice is, and the reason I'm intrigued is going back to your introduction is one being outdoors because of where you live, and then two, noting piloting, meaning you fly a plane. Talk to us about that.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, so that's absolutely a wellness practice for me.
Yeah.
I I love flying because you cannot think about anything else
Mm.
other than flying that plane. It is a great way to just check out.
Yeah.
Don't check out of what you need to be doing to fly the plane. That's important. Always fly the plane. But it was such a great, like when I was taking my lessons, I was going through a tough time. Um, it was actually after my second layoff. I was like, you know what? This is a great opportunity to just purposely take some time off and learn something. I had started pursuing my pilot's license way back when I was 19. Life just kept getting in the way. So when I was taking my flying lessons, I would absolutely visualize. As soon as I turned that knob to walk through the door, I said, everything else is behind me. This is my focus now. So from the moment I walked through that doorway, I was thinking about nothing other than what I needed to be focused on to absorb the
Yeah.
teaching because it was expensive too, right?
Yeah.
So I had to get my money.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, that is, also like a core, like a fundamental purpose to like meditation, for example. It's like the practice of
Absolutely.
focus, right? And if, to your point, if you're flying a plane, like you probably better be focused on flying the plane and not anything else. So that's really neat.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So that's certainly a wellness practice for me. Other than that, like, I do a lot of walking. Walking
Mm,
is really good for me when I'm working on a speech or writing.
mm.
Apparently, I just learned recently it's because you're using both your left and your right brain when you're walking. So the thoughts come more freely, which I didn't really think about before, but now that it was mentioned to me, I was like, oh,
Mm.
yeah, that makes sense. I come up with some really good ideas when I'm out walking.
Mhm.
Um, and I try to get to the gym. I wish I was better at that. If anyone can help me stay accountable there. Um, but it's important to keep your strength up.
Yeah.
I've had some really ridiculous injuries that were really just slacker injuries. Like I said, none of my injuries have been cool. Um, that being able to have strength and maintain your strength is so important, and it's a weak point for me, but I'm trying to get better.
Yeah. My tip to anyone who says that is just set like a really easy goal that you could accomplish. For example, 15 minutes once a week. Be consistent with that 15 minutes once a week, and then you'll see yourself hopefully, probably, maybe, trajecting to more. But even if you're not trajecting to more, you're still doing, that 15 minutes once a week. So
Yeah,
that's my advice. Take it or leave it. I think
appreciate it.
it's an easy one to tackle if you want to.
That is a good reminder. Yeah, break
Hmm.
break big problems down to smaller problems, which is,
Yeah,
the project manager motto also, right?
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Alicia, I really, really appreciate you sharing your story. Bookending the shout out of thank you for being the first woman on the show. I hope this leads to many more. Any women listening, please, if you fit the criteria, a veteran in the built environment or a veteran who helps veterans, please reach out. Love to talk. Love to have you on the show. Alicia, thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. I super appreciate it, and I'm very honored that you asked me to be here. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, bye everyone. Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build.